Hey, hey, hey. I'm Al Kavadlo, and we're working out. Thanks for listening to my podcast. My guest this week is Ed Checo. Ed Checo is the founder and CEO of Barstarzz. With over 170 million views on YouTube, Barstarzz is undoubtedly one of the world's most popular calisthenics organizations. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Well, let's go ahead and get into the interview. So it's been almost 10 years since you started Barstarzz, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Where does the time go?
Crazy. I still feel like I didn't age.
Well,
but I definitely feel the age.
That's because you've been working out that you feel like you didn't age. Or maybe you feel the age because you've been working out too much. What did you mean by that?
A little of both. So it's kind of like you don't feel like 10 years have gone by. I still feel like the exact same person.
You are. Except you've had so many new experiences, right?
Yeah, exactly. But then I also feel like some of the aches and like I used to work out in the park for 4 hours straight. I can't picture doing 4 hours. Now, like if I stick for 4 hours, it's like 2 hours of talking.
Yeah. How old are you now? Are you 30 yet?
30.
So yeah, that's
31.
That's around when those teenage and early 20s lifestyle things like doing 4-hour workouts and then staying out till 4 a.m. and drinking and not sleeping. That stuff starts to affect your body really differently.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I know you've been doing a lot of traveling also in the last bunch of years, and that could wear you out too.
Yeah, for sure.
But, before we even get into all that, where did you first get the idea to start Barstarzz?
Well, I've done calisthenics since I was the age of 10, like just basic bodyweight stuff. As I got older, I started practicing these different freestyle movements that I've seen my peers do. And I'd say roughly around maybe 20. My friends, I started going to the gym with my friends John and Tony, and they're talking about like bartenders, and they're like, "Oh, check out bartenders." And at the time, I wasn't really like on the computer a lot. It would be more like I wake up and I go hang outside, and I was like, "Okay, how do you?" I figured out how to get on YouTube, and I googled
So was
it.
that sort of what got you using the internet? Was wanting to share calisthenic stuff?
Yes and no. So I was part of this laptop class in 5th grade, and like you get a discounted and you get to take a laptop home.
What year were you in 5th grade? I'm just trying to do the math in my head.
Let's see.
Is that like 90s, mid 90s?
I think
late 90s.
I think late 90s.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was like we were in the newspaper and everything for having like laptops. So I was more computer illiterate than most people. But as you get older, it's like, especially at the time, it was like frowned upon to be like computer literate.
Right. You were a nerd if you spent too much time online. And now everyone spends all day online.
Or how times have changed.
Yeah, it is amazing. It is. So, okay, so you said there were 2 other guys who kind of brought you in. Were they founding members of Barstarzz along with you?
Yeah. If you watch the first maybe 3 YouTube videos, Tony's in it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I believe a middle school teacher. And John Hendricks is in it, who has his own podcast about military. IG Recon, I think it is.
So nothing to do with calisthenics then?
No, I think it's, from what I've seen over the years, everyone kind of like, it's hard to...
You've had a lot of different members of Barstarzz over the years who've gone off and done their own thing or branched out in different ways. How do you feel about all of that?
It's cool. Like, Barstarzz, I never looked at it as something where, like, I own people, like it's cool to hang out and mingle, and it was kind of like a crew thing.
Well, I think that attitude is a big part of why you had so much success. So what were your expectations in the beginning when you started posting those videos on YouTube?
So when I first started posting it, I was a fan. I was a fan before anything, so I was watching YouTube, very specifically the bartenders. I always liked, at the time, their style. But they would release videos like once, 2, 3 times a year, and I was just like, I was so frustrated because I was such a fan that I wanted to see stuff. So I was just like, okay, when I start uploading videos, I'm going to upload them, aggressively.
Yeah.
I remember my friends John and Tony were like, "Yo, why you keep making videos of the same moves? Can we wait till we learn new moves?" And I was always like, "Yo, you're like in this bubble of, this is basic, but to the whole world, this is like insane. Just look at the YouTube comments once you post something."
Yeah. How many videos did you make before you started to feel like, wait a minute, this is starting to catch on? Because it didn't happen for a little while. Is that right?
Yeah. So at first, I lived it. Like I would wake up, I would post a video, and I would just stay on Facebook and YouTube and spam.
Just
everyone.
Sharing it as much as possible.
Yeah. Add, subscribe to other people, comment, share the link in Facebook groups.
But you joked that you were spamming, but I've always known you to be somebody who takes the time to make your posts more specific than just spamming. If you're in a group, you're actually involved in that group and not just, hey, I'm going to just post my thing and disappear. Or at least back then, that was my observation. You were really making an effort to grow the community. And I think to just, like you said, you were doing it because you just were a huge fan yourself. And you wanted to talk about this stuff all day. I mean, is that correct?
Yeah. Thank you for correcting me, actually. Because if people do leave with the word spamming, they're like, oh, I was probably harassing people. But yeah,
because that's something that some people do that I think is really ineffective. They just post their thing and they don't make it specific at all to the group they're posting in, and they don't offer anything of value. But if you're offering value and you're really engaging with people and you're sharing content and it's actually helpful content, well then, that's how you grew it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I would spend time on YouTube looking for other calisthenic channels, and I'd reach out and be supportive, and I'll watch the full video and leave feedback that's appropriate to the video.
Yeah, I remember you reached out to me when I first started posting stuff. You and I started around the same time, and we're just very supportive and positive and welcoming. And
thank you. Appreciate that, Al.
Yeah, you're welcome. YouTube now, you've got 150 million views or more than that, right?
Yeah.
It grew tremendously at one point. Did you feel that there was a tipping point or a point where all of a sudden things started to happen faster, or was it just a gradual chipping away little by little?
A little of both. So I stayed consistent uploading YouTube videos, but I had one specific year where it was 2011. I competed at the World Championship, and I documented like a documentary style video.
I recall this.
And for some reason, I don't know. I personally loved the video, but I didn't know how many other people would, and it actually did great. And
now, I want to talk more about this event because was this the first time that you traveled internationally for a pull-up competition type thing?
Yeah. So before that, my only travels has been to Dominican Republic and Florida.
You have family in those places?
Yeah.
So this was probably a very intimidating experience for you at the time. You were pretty young, and you were getting on a plane to go all the way to Europe, farther than you've ever traveled before. Talk me through what was going through your head.
When I got the invitation, I felt like I was even worthy. I presented it to two of my friends, Sikwede and Juan, Barstarzz, and they both were also equally as uncomfortable of going to Europe by themselves.
But the three of you all went together.
Oh, no, because they only wanted one person to represent.
Oh, okay.
So I just felt like I wasn't. I felt like it was probably one of my best years, but I still at the same time I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm as good as Juan or Sikwede. I presented them to both. They both were like, nah, we're not going by ourselves somewhere halfway across the world.
Yeah.
And I just thought okay, we can't just.
Someone's got to do it, and that someone had to be you.
Yeah, so I sucked it up, and I was like, all right,
So you flew by yourself?
Yeah. Very nerve-wracking. At the cheapest flight ever. A lot Polish at the very last seat.
I flew on that airline when I went to Poland. Yeah. No, that's so you came out of pocket for your ticket for that? They didn't pay your expenses?
So, funny story. So they paid, I think, for the first ticket. I was so nervous and so not informed of how to do everything that it ended up so that I would stay in Latvia for a month. Which is obviously. Yeah, which is
so you just got a one-way trip out there, and then you had to make your own way back. Is that what it is?
No. They booked a round trip ticket. I think they sent me the money, and I booked it, but I booked it incorrectly, so it gave me a month. And of course, I wasn't welcome for a month, and I also didn't want to be there for a month. So
okay.
You had to change the ticket, but then you lose the money after a certain time.
Right.
So then being a little frustrated. but they ended up sending some more money, and then I was able. This time they wasn't the full ticket. They just sent. I forgot how much, and I had to make the difference.
So when you finally got out there and you got off the plane, what was that feeling like when you met these people? These are people you'd only interacted with online, right? And then you finally had a face-to-face meetup.
I was so nervous. Like, I was at baggage claim. I grabbed my bag, and I just thought for a second, oh, I don't want to go out there. Then I realized, okay, there's no way they're coming in here because it's, baggage claim. So I just forced it out, and they sent the best guys. It was two Lavian guys, Max and Rollins, and they had signs, and they made me feel really warm and at home.
I love that story. It's such a cliche in life, but it's always the things that you're most afraid to do that wind up being the things that really change you the most and help you grow and help you become, like you said, that person. You're still the same person you were 10 years ago, but you had all these different experiences now, so in a way you're not anymore, right?
Oh, I would have regretted so much if I didn't go to that trip. It's definitely one of the best experiences of my life.
And since then, you've become quite the traveler. You've been to a lot of different places, and all kind of because of calisthenics, right?
Well, most. So I also just started having fun with traveling and started traveling on personal reasons. But I would say 95% of my travels are calisthenics related.
Would you have ever thought when you got into doing calisthenics when you were 10 years old that it was going to take you all over the world?
Oh, not at all.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So at that point in 2011, that was when the YouTube channel was starting to blow up, and you were starting to get invited to places like Europe to do bar competitions. And I imagine people were probably starting to reach out to you about programs and wanting to buy a book or a product. Is that around when you launched your first program?
Yeah, I actually believe so. Yeah,
What was the very first Barstarzz program that you guys started selling?
It was a DVD. It was the ultimate how-to bodyweight fitness.
2011 DVDs, remember?
Yeah. I actually threw out my DVD player the other day. I was like, what is this?
You held on to it for a while. You just threw it out the other day.
Because it just kind of, I'm not that clean of a person.
So after that, you guys have had a lot of different products over the years. Did you wind up doing a book at one point? I remember you were telling me that was something you were thinking of doing. Did that come to fruition?
No, I recently did a certification with the help of a Chinese company.
And that has some kind of manual or book with it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But that's it.
Is that an online certification or something you're teaching in person?
Something I'm teaching in person.
Tell me more about that. How you just started this recently, or how long has this been going on for?
I just launched it in I want to say February.
Okay, this is just this year.
Yeah. So I've never. It's always something like you always have all these ideas popping up, but then I go into like I would compare my work life like a sprinter. So I go really, really, really fast, and then I need a long break. As opposed to what's probably a more healthier relationship with work, like a jogger, where you like take your pace and you do a little sign, a little rest, a little sign, a little rest.
Well, I can relate to your saying and to what you're saying, and I think that's because when you get into a new project, you just throw yourself into it completely, and it takes so much out of you to complete, and then when you're done, sometimes you just need to rest and step away for a little bit in order to let that enthusiasm kind of build back up again.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate.
When you hit 1 million views on YouTube, what did that feel like? Do you remember that?
I don't. Was
there any milestone, like a certain number of views that you remember thinking like, whoa, this many people have seen this? Or it just happened so gradually that it was never really seemed like that much?
I think it just happened gradually. Things that would be cool, like milestones for me, would be like making it on WorldStarHipHop. Just because in my social circle of friends, so many people talk about it. But
you've been in so much mainstream media. You've been in Men's Health. You've been on the news. Oh, yeah. You've been in the New York Post.
Yeah, I would say Men's Health is definitely my number one. Just because I remember reading it as a kid. My brother subscribes to everything, and I would read it as a toddler. So seeing me in it and being able to mention my brother, who was the reason I knew of Men's Health for any type of workout, was an absolute pleasure.
Well, have you tried to get yourself in WorldStar? Have you submitted stuff to them?
I have afterwards, but the first couple times it was random. Like I was just like walking in the street and people were texting me like, "Yo, you're on WorldStar Hip Hop."
Oh, you have been on it. You said that.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were saying you wanted to, and that's why I was like, but you've been on things that seem bigger than that. But right, so
Oh,
that was a big deal for you at the time, was getting on that.
exactly. Especially because I was
Got
young,
it.
so I was a frequent visitor of WorldStar Hip Hop.
So when you finally got on World Star Hip Hop, what did that feel like? Was it disappointing? Was it everything you hoped it would be? Was it more than you thought it would be? Was it life changing in some way?
I wouldn't describe it as. It definitely put a smile on my face that I couldn't take off, and I would just sit there and read the comments. But it was in my overall life, it wasn't anything of significance. I think. I mean, it made me feel great at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's not something that stayed with me.
Do you feel like that made a big difference in terms of getting Barstarzz a lot more views or a lot more followers?
I think so. Yeah, I know YouTube gives you analytics, and
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if they do it anymore. But at
They
one
did
point,
back then.
yeah, your number one traffic source, and for the month that I was on WorldStar Hip Hop, it was always WorldStar Hip Hop.
What do you tell people when they ask you what you do for a living?
It's always a weird question because I feel like
Isn't
I do
it?
so much.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself a fitness professional or a YouTuber or a little bit of both? Or
I've never used fitness professional, but that sounds way better. I've used YouTuber. Usually people ask me what I do. I start with, I started my own business, and then just kind of start describing it from there, which is a much longer title. Just because
Right.
I don't know which category. Like to say I'm a YouTuber isn't completely accurate because I haven't released
It's
a
a
YouTube
small
video.
part of what you do.
Yeah,
Is that
exactly.
something that at one point was generating a lot of revenue?
Yeah, it was. So at one point, YouTube was the major source of income, and it's no longer that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also very happy because YouTube takes a lot.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think people realize how much work goes into making even just a video that's a few minutes long.
yeah, exactly.
And do you find that something like Instagram or Facebook is much less work because it's just put up a photo and a little caption? You don't have to take a whole video, right?
I completely agree with that. I find it totally reasonable and manageable to post every day on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah.
YouTube, even once a week, is really hard.
Well, that's what you were saying a while ago about some of the guys who inspired you in the beginning. They were only posting a video once every few months. Because,
Yeah.
at that time, I don't think anyone had any idea that this could ever be like a viable career. Those guys all had jobs and families, and they couldn't be making a YouTube video every day.
Exactly. I'm sure that played a huge part into it.
Did you have any experience in the fitness industry at all before you started doing Barstarzz?
None. I just
What
worked out a
sort
lot.
of jobs did you have? I know you were really young when you started. You probably didn't even have that many jobs at all, right?
I had 3 jobs before Barstarzz, and one was a summer
I'd
job.
love to know what they were.
I think my first job was a summer job at a factory, at my dad's factory, and I was just in charge of like putting like little tops on top of holes of machines that would be colored, so that the color didn't get inside the holes.
That sounds boring.
It was, but because of my pops.
But it was a job, so you were excited. It was your first job, right?
And he was there. My father was there for 20 years, so it pretty much like I got the easiest possible job. I could listen to my
Okay.
headphones.
All right, yeah, it doesn't sound so bad anymore.
Then I had a job for like less than a week. It was like a production assistant. It's like where you help set up cones and stop people from crossing the street for like movie sets.
Right. Stand there and tell people that they have to go across the street because you're filming.
Yeah, exactly. And I wasn't fired or did I quit. It was more like
It was just a short-term gig.
yeah, exactly. It was like, you got to know someone to know someone, and then
Yeah.
I knew someone who knew someone, so I was like the shortest circle in.
Right, right.
And
what
then the
was-
last job, I was
Mhm.
like an assistant porter, which was really not up for it, Like I remember seeing the
Wow.
toilet like clogged, and I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm going to get fired.
So since you started doing Barstarzz, have you had to get a day job, or has this just been enough to float you along?
Yeah, I've been good. Luckily, I haven't had
Isn't
a
that
job.
cool? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
Does
it
that
is.
blow your mind? Do you think about that a lot? Do you know people who you grew up with who've had just a regular 9 to 5 job for the last 10 years?
Yeah, more than just like doing what I love to do, which I also really do, but the fact that it allows me the freedom that I could work when I want to work.
Yeah, but
Like,
I sometimes have moments where I get jealous of people who have really stable jobs because my job is so unstable and because so much of it is just kind of up to me to make things happen. And it's like, man, you just wake up and go to a place every day and you just get a check and a salary. And when you're not there, you don't have to think about it. And, the grass is always greener on the other side to a certain extent. But I guess there's pros and cons to everything.
I've told my girlfriend before that I was thinking about, like, yo, it'd be cool to have like a part-time job, like something like Uber or something, just so like days I don't want to use my brain, I could take like a brain 2-3 week vacation and just do like a job that doesn't require, like very like standard. Okay, I'll pick you here, or maybe like something that just doesn't involve so much thinking. Because being an entrepreneur is like, like you said earlier, everything depends on you. If you don't do it, no one does it.
Exactly. I just have to restate what you just said so that people listening hear this. Ed Checo, the CEO of Barstarzz, over 150 million views on YouTube, sometimes thinks that he should go and drive for Uber. It's not always what people think it is, right? You probably meet people who think, oh man, your life is so good, so easy. You just sit back and people are watching stuff on YouTube and you're just making money. And right, do you meet people who think you're like famous sometimes?
Yo, if you wouldn't believe the amount of people who hear that what I do for a living and they go, oh, I'm gonna start a YouTube channel.
Right. They think it's just easy money. Ka-ching, sign me up. And people used to think that about personal training even before YouTube.
Yeah.
But both of the realities of these things is, man, they're really hard. And, YouTube nowadays especially, there's so many people out there posting content. To get your stuff noticed and to stand out is harder than ever.
I think it's sad now because there's so many people, it's gone like clickbait to hell.
Yes. Yeah,
like
sensationalism.
And it's sad because that's not how you get the best information out.
No. This is definitely, I think, one of the problems in social media today is this whole idea of, well, if someone has a lot of followers, they must be a legit expert. And that's not always the case.
I think The Guardian had an article the other day talking about like 95% of what influencers share about diet is false.
I think you could take the word influencers out of that and replace it with anyone. And it's still a true statement.
Oh, yeah. The internet is like conspiracy theories come to life,
Yeah. Well, it's hard to know what's real and what's not more than ever nowadays. And that's why you got to just take everything with a grain of salt. And at the end of the day, go with your own firsthand experience and go with your intuition, even if that means disregarding what I say or what Ed says or what any other so-called expert might have to say.
Yeah, I agree with that fully. I feel like you know your body. Like, you could hear general advice that could be completely wrong, but some of it could be right. But you have to make that determination based on your prior history and knowing yourself from being with yourself your whole lifetime.
Agreed. So you said you hardly had done any traveling before you started traveling for Barstarzz, but that you have sort of discovered that you really love travel. Is that something that surprised you? Because the first trip you said you were so nervous and anxious, and now it seems like you go all the way to China and it's no big deal.
Yeah, I actually have to check myself sometimes because I like to be humble, and I feel like sometimes I may just speak and it just comes off wrong, like.
I don't think you've said anything here that sounds arrogant.
Thank you. But I meant more like in like personal conversations. I would be like, oh, don't hire a tour guide. They're just going to, scam you for money. Just get it off Google Maps and go.
Well, I think when you speak from experience, you don't sound like a jackass. Like if you'd said that and you'd never been anywhere in your life, that's when you sound like a dick and a know-it-all. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go on.
Yeah, no, maybe I'm just overly self-conscious about it.
Well, I think, when you are a self-aware person and a modest person, you always think that you're being a jerk when you're not. And I think that that's one of the hardest things for someone like you and me, because, we're both fairly sensitive people. And I think that's one of the hardest things is to find that balance where you're not constantly criticizing yourself and constantly second-guessing everything that you do, but also being, subjective or objective, rather, enough about yourself to notice if you are doing something that maybe isn't how you want to conduct yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You consider yourself to be an introverted person?
I would say so, for sure.
And is that weird to then be on YouTube and have all these people watching you and to go and do these workshops and be in front of an audience?
It's funny. People are always like, "Oh, like you don't strike me as an introvert." And it's like when you're filming a YouTube video, it's you, maybe a camera person, but that's it.
Right.
I'm not filming in front of 30 or 40 people in the middle of the party. I could film a YouTube video much easier than I could attend and mingle at a party. I'm not thinking about the thousands or millions of people who are watching. I'm thinking, okay, I'm here with my friend. I'm going to film this.
Right.
That puts less pressure on me than if I'm like, I feel like I'm at a party and there's like 50 people and I have to like mingle and I'm in person with them, whether I know them or not. Or like,
well, it's a much more controlled environment making a YouTube video. If you do a take and you say something stupid, you just delete that one and do it again until you get one you're happy with, right? But if you say something stupid it's to someone in person, well, then you already said it. And there's no taking it back and deleting it.
Yeah. I think I've seen an article that describes introverts and extroverts. And the way they describe it is when you take your time to recharge. Introverts have to be by themselves.
Alone.
Exactly. And for me, I definitely feel like really exhausted when I go through like fitness expos and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of fitness professionals who have expressed exactly what you just said, and I feel the same way myself to a certain extent, that I really see myself as an introverted person, and the work that I really enjoy is work that's done in a more private setting, like making a YouTube video or writing a book. I mean, writing a book is like the least glamorous thing you could do. It's just you sitting in front of a computer for hours and hours and hours alone. Or if you have a writing partner, sometimes you guys are in the same room. But the one-on-one training that I did for so long before I ventured out into larger group formats in YouTube was always what you said. It's not with a big group. It's just you and one other person, like this conversation we're having now. So it's such a different thing to just be with one person than it is to be with a lot of people. But I also, maybe you can relate to this, there's a part of me that loves the attention. I mean, right, when you post a video on YouTube, aren't you hoping people are going to watch it? Isn't that sort of the idea?
Yeah, I think every YouTuber, the goal is to strike up the views.
Yeah, and so there has to be a part of you, even if you are an introvert on some level, there's a part of you that wants attention. You just want to kind of be able to control how you're getting that attention. Is that what you found? I'm mostly talking about myself, I guess.
I can't. I never put so much thought to put it in terms, but I'm definitely classifying myself closer to the introvert side, and I definitely enjoy making social media posts that get a lot of views and likes and engagement.
Well, there's definitely a spectrum of introversion and extroversion, and it's an oversimplification to say anybody is entirely one or the other. But I think people are surprised, and I think it's good for people listening to know that guys like you and me aren't always acting the way that you see us acting on YouTube, that's a small part of your bigger overall world. And
yeah.
I'm enjoying getting to delve a little deeper today. Thank you for that.
I'm having a great time.
Back to the YouTube for a minute. I'm glad you're having a great time, by the way. I am enjoying this conversation as well, and I hope people listening are. And if they are, they can leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes. But there was a time when you used to get a plaque from YouTube after you hit a number of subscribers. That's a real thing, right? You got an actual plaque in the mail from them?
Yeah, I have it.
You still have it hanging? How many? What's the criteria for the plaque?
There's two. So there's one for 100,000.
100,000 subscribers.
Yeah, they might have changed that.
Uh-huh.
But mine is from when I had over 100,000. And then there's one for over 1 million. I don't have that one. That's the gold one.
You got to be getting close to that by this point, right?
I'm at like 700 something thousand.
I guess that's close, but in a way, it's still not that close. Depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
You're 3/4 of the way there, but you also need another 250,000 people.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm guessing that plaque that you don't have yet probably isn't that important to you.
No. I'm very happy with this one.
I think the 100,000, when you got that, was that in 2011 or 2012? Are they still even giving those? Because I imagine a lot of people have 100,000 subscribers by now because it doesn't mean what it used to.
Exactly. I think they changed. I think they raised it. But I actually got it. So they started the program when I was already at like 500,000. But they don't send it to you automatically. You had to request it.
Oh,
so
okay.
I saw someone who had less subscribers than me post about it.
And you were like, what the fuck is that? He has a plaque and I don't?
Exactly. So I had to figure it out. I attend the YouTube studio here in New York every now and then.
Tell me more about that.
Never picked up too much information of value, but it's super cool to engage with other people that are YouTubers and just to talk. And like it's such a unique field that there's no other way I would see people that I would consider like peers. So I try to attend.
Has that been a good networking opportunity then? Have you met other calisthenics YouTubers or just other YouTubers who are doing YouTube about completely unrelated things?
Yeah, so it wasn't. I guess you could use it for networking. I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
I just go for like the overall great time, like I have a genuine good time hanging out with other YouTubers and listening to what they make videos on and just a conversation about it.
So when you're around people who share your interests, that's when the extroverted side of your personality comes out more?
Exactly. Like if I'm in a calisthenics meetup or I guess YouTube meetup, and then, if I'm just at a general cocktail party, I'm just like, oh.
That's exactly how I feel about it. There's so few topics that I'm really genuinely excited to talk to people about, and most of the crap that people want to make small talk about, I just have so little interest in it. So I wind up becoming somewhat of an introverted person, but then somebody brings up calisthenics or something that I want to talk about, and then I'm going to finally come out of my shell.
And like when you're younger, you feel pressure to go all these like social events, like parties, and then,
yeah, you're an old man now. You're over that crap, right?
Oh, it just feels great. Just listening to someone invite me. I'm probably not gonna make it, no.
Yeah, wait till you have a kid. You won't go to anything.
You don't get that feeling of guilt either. You're just like, nah, I'm not,
Yeah.
This is my Friday night, and I'd much rather enjoy just chilling.
Yeah, I hear you. And it becomes one of those things too when health and fitness are important to you. Going out and drinking, it's not appealing because it's going to ruin your gains. I know that's such a ridiculous way of putting it, but it is. I would much rather save my energy so I could have a good workout the next morning than waste it going out to the club.
Yeah, just the way you feel. Like I don't feel like after like a day of staying out late and drinking, the next day it kind of feels like shit. And
absolutely. But like we said earlier, when you're in your 20s, you can get away with it a little bit more, and it doesn't impact you the same way. You don't feel as crappy afterward.
Yeah, and also in your 20s, at least for me in my 20s, I just felt like it was an obligation. Like I felt like I had to go to these events.
Yeah.
And I had to stay out late.
I think it's a hugely freeing decision to say, I am not going to do social things out of obligation anymore. It's one thing, a work obligation, a family obligation, but socially with your friends, those are people you should be hanging out with because they enrich your life and they add to it and they make it fun, not because they stress you out or make you have to do things you don't want to do.
Yep. Well said.
Well, Ed, you've accomplished a lot in the last 10 years. What do you want to achieve now? What keeps you driven?
Well, I definitely go from goal to goal. So,
do you have your sights set on something right now, or is this one of those phases, like you mentioned earlier, where you're just kind of waiting for the inspiration to get hot again?
So a little of both. You call me at the end of that second phase. I just finished. I bought a house in Florida.
Oh wow! Am I talking to you from Florida right now?
No, I'm in New York.
Okay,
so
you are still.
I rented it out. It's a duplex. So
are you planning to live there, or is this just to rent out?
Just to rent out. But I'm also planning to live somewhere in Florida before that next year.
So you do sort of have another job. You're doing some sort of real estate thing, sort of.
Yeah. So that's how I'm like powering up now, because I went there. I was living in Florida for like 3 months. I was organizing everything. So now I came back drained, and I think for like the last maybe 3 weeks, I just been like doing the bare minimum. And,
yeah, I haven't been seeing as many Instagram posts from you lately.
Exactly. So that was my goal, and I kind of have it now, so it's self-running. And now I'm like, just this week, I was like, okay, it's time to start working on something again. I feel like I'm getting lazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to get into like making a podcast and focusing on like health and longevity with specific experts. So I feel like when I first started YouTube, calisthenics was like 100% my everything.
Yeah.
Now it's more like overall health and and just longevity altogether. Like I'm very curious. Like, what's the best diet? Is meat really bad for you? Do vegans have it right, or are they wrong?
Is that going to be the type of thing you explore in the podcast?
Yeah, so I was thinking I got to make an intro video first on YouTube to let people know that it's not going to be exactly just me chatting with like bartenders all day. And I hope to have you on too, Kavadlo.
Oh, it would be my pleasure to be on your podcast, Ed. And yeah, podcasting is one of those things that I'm really excited to see how you do with it, and I think you're going to be great at it. But it's just like making videos on YouTube, and I'm learning a lot as I'm going, and it's sometimes what you think it's going to be like and what it actually is. Not always the same, and that's what keeps life interesting.
Right, it makes me nervous. Like for anything, I try to like sit there and I learn as much as possible. But at the same time, you don't want to spend months learning something and never.
You got to just throw yourself into it and be prepared that you're going to get better as you go.
Exactly. So I started like the very beginning of it, like editing the podcast graphic.
Well, you and I, it's interesting. We've had a lot of similar thoughts at similar times, and I guess we had this idea around the same time. I got a little bit of a jump on you here, but in another 10 years, that might not matter. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, Ed. Is there anything else you want to let the audience know before we sign off?
You could follow me at Ed Barstarzz, EDBARSTRZZ, on Instagram, and the rest of the social medias are by the same name, Barstarzz. And thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure was mine, and I look forward to being your guest next time. Well, that's all for this week. If you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. And make sure to check out my new book, Next Level Strength, the ultimate rings and paraleads program. More information is available on my website, alkavadlo.com. Tune into the podcast next week when my guest will be Jim Bathurst.